Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today is a special day as we finally are able to showcase some gameplay for Total War Warhammer 3. There's a few things that you need to know before we begin, however. The gameplay shown on screen right now has been recorded by a member of Creative Assembly staff, meaning that any list issues with their army roster or building or tactics or something like that, blame him, not me, please. And obviously what you're seeing in terms of stats and so on could change by the time of release. Everything is still in development at the moment. I'm not 100% too sure when this was recorded, but it was seeded to us very recently. But with all that being said, we have our first video of today, and there's going to be a few. This is, of course, an Ogre Kindoms minor settlement battle versus the forces of Grand Cathay. Yes, we're finally getting to see some minor settlements. And proper gameplay too, meaning stats, spells, and all the like. So what we can see already is that the Ogre settlements are quite interesting, very similar to that of the non-minor settlements in Total War 3 Kingdoms, which is a good format. There is not just one way to attack the settlement, in fact this is a proper 360-degree battle, which is absolutely awesome, loads of different entrances and exits, and it's multi-layered too, with some extra bridges, so you have a lot of areas to be able to fight, defend, or even invade. So the member of CA is right now just moving around his forces, getting ready to attack, as the army of Cathay seems to be attacking from 4 different sides. The army composition is rather interesting, as obviously he's playing as Scrag the Sorcerer, so he's brought some Ogres, which seem to have Vanguard. He's brought a lot of Noblars. I'm not too sure why so many different Noblars, though it could have been through the limitations, as this is a custom battle, not directly through campaign. But we can see a lot of really cool stuff. Obviously, there's some Rhinox Riders too, which I weren't expecting, a Stonehorn, and a Noblar Scrap Launcher, which I really enjoy. These are one of the units that I loved painting on the tabletop and loved using on the tabletop, so it's nice to see that we pretty much have them, though this was confirmed more or less when we already had a look at the Ogre camps. I'm not criticizing the member of Creative Assembly staff, as he is trying to look around. There's a lot of different entrances and exits, and it's very interesting knowing that you've got enemies coming from all 4 sides, and they can pretty much go anywhere. There is a lot of area to play with, even this just being counted as a minor settlement. Talking about the minor settlement in general, this is extremely impressive. As you can see, it's absolutely massive. I mean, we're a few minutes into the video, and it's so big. It is really impressive, not only because this is an Ogre Kingdom settlement, which we were expecting, but we're expecting all minor settlements to have this grand look. They obviously do not have to be as big because, well, that's how it is, but this is still incredibly awesome. Now, what you will have also noticed is that you can build up stuff in the minor settlements too. So many things which were outlined in the Siege rework itself is obviously viable here too, which is good, as that means that you're able to use this mechanic if you so wish. You don't have to if you don't like it, but it's nice to have the option, and it's very likely that the AI will be using it too. It's unknown how many races and factions will have access to this, as I'm assuming that not all minor settlements will have pseudo walls like the Ogre Kingdom one does, but we're gonna have to wait and see. My only complaint so far, or better yet said, a question I'm going to throw at the developers after this video is done recording, is why the Sabercats don't have Vanguard. Understandably, there's a lot of units here with Vanguard, but the Sabercats, it kind of had this whole feel with them on the tabletop to give them Vanguard, so yeah, it just kind of makes sense. Though mind you, you only had Vanguard if you had a Hunter in your tabletop army, so maybe it's the same thing. Hopefully some clarification can be provided by Creative Assembly, as it would really much help. The CA member of staff has obviously wanted to take a while to make sure that his army placement is correct, and it's not too bad, it's just a few minutes, and it obviously allows us to see around the map. Though, with all that being said, the battle is about to begin, and we can start seeing, well, a lot of fighting. Very early on, being able to start knocking down some enemies with some lead belchers, which have a decent amount of range. 200 might be a tad much, though mind you, there are cannons, so yeah, it does kind of make sense. Again, that you have to keep in mind that obviously any stats here may or may not be shown in the future end product. Now, enemies are coming from all sides, which of course means that you have to keep microing around. And it's impressive to see enemy AI attacking from 4 different points. This is something which the AI in Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 wasn't too good for, especially if you started using, say for example, modded maps. So at least we're already starting to see AI improve improvements here. It's not all coming from one location, thus it's forcing you to split up your armies in different directions, which, again, I cannot praise them highly enough. As long as the AI keeps doing this and not making mistakes, well, that's going to be a good thing for Warhammer 3, and it's going to give you reason to play battles more and more rather than just auto-resolve. You are gaining more resources as you're fighting back the enemy. This is very much like the standard format for the new siege battles, meaning that you can keep building up some new settlement defenses if you so need it. And given the fact that Cathay seems a little bit strong, you're going to need it. They're quite fast, and as you can see, they're already coming in from all different directions. With Miao Ying leading a charge in her dragon form directly into Skrog, you can expect a lot of different enemies just attacking you, and you might actually have to need to use battle tactics, proper battle tactics in Warhammer 3, rather than just hiding in a corner for once. This is pretty cool, as you can see that she is quite strong. She is getting hit quite hard though, as Ogres are going to start running into her, and she was only really defended by, or joined by, better yet said, by some Cathayan artillery and ranged weapons, which perhaps would have been useful in another point, and possibly obviously have some anti-large units, some halberdiers or something like that against these guys. Though again, this being said, this is the AI, and the AI is going to make mistakes. Possibly this was played in a normal battle circumstance. I'm honestly such a big fan of being attacked in multiple fronts and having to work overtime throughout the game map, making sure that you can split up your forces effectively to deal with all sides. This is really cool, and I've seen this battle over and over a few times before recording this video. I've literally just had it on loop on my second screen as I was writing up this script, and I must admit, this is so cool. Being able to strategically fall back into defensive positions, like for example these bridges, which will serve as pretty good choke points, especially if the enemy is running out of ammunition and they'll have to meet you head on. This is a real big quality of life change, and you can be able to use the terrain around you, which is so important. Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 unfortunately did not have access to a lot of terrain that you could use as any viable actual battle terrain. So now we're seeing this, which is more reminiscent to that of Three Kingdoms and Troy. I've said this many times before, that both those two games had a lot of really cool stuff that of course Warhammer could use and make Warhammer such a better game. Just look at these spell effects. This is of course the spell known as Bone Crusher, which is part of the lore of the Great Maw, and while we never had visual representations of these spells on the tabletop, this is pretty much what I imagined in my head. So as you can imagine, I am just really excited. It looked amazing. We're seeing the Cathayan army push further and further in, which of course does make sense. They've got quite some nasty units, some Jade Warriors, they had some Sentinels, and obviously those are going to be able to do as much damage as possible. They are higher tier units, and I'm seeing a lot of faltering from the player who is recording this, which does make sense. You're going to want to move your forces back if you're finding yourself overwhelmed, as your 20-man stack has been effectively split into 4 5-man stacks. So there's only so much that you can actually do as you start losing units, and if you don't know exactly what to counter with what, you're going to start to suffer, which again, we all make this mistake, so I'm not blaming him for this. It actually gives us a better view on how the battle can play out, and I prefer this than just getting 2 min-max lists and seeing how they do. Rather, having 2 fluffy lists kind of just makes it look a lot better and gives you a better interpretation of the game from all points of playstyle. If you're a normal player, you're more used to this in this sense. Rather, if you're a better player, if you prefer playing Legendary and so on, you're like, okay, so an army of this composition would not be too valuable, or better, it might be worth charging out with some cavalry units and so on. All in all, I'd say that the staff member's been able to hold out quite well, and as you've been able to see throughout the clip, he's been building up constantly. So if he has the resources, he's been building up some new shrines, towers, and so on in an effort to provide some extra defenses, which I think works out really, really well. You want to be able to use your surroundings, and why wouldn't you want to use that? I know some players aren't too keen, but again, it's just extra flavor. The Terracotta Sentinels do seem very, very powerful. As far as I've seen throughout the whole battle, they've been being pretty much engaged all the time, and it doesn't look like they've lost too much HP. Well, one has, but the other one that was fighting the Stonehorn wasn't too much. I'm not too sure if the Stonehorn is countered by the Terracotta Sentinel, or we're just going to have to wait and see. It could just be different stats, or it could be healed up. You never know if there's some sort of way to just keep it up. If anything, I'm very impressed with the fact that the AI is able to move around with 4 different split groups and not have too much of a problem. It's losing still, but I'm imagining, of course, if you're able to use towers, if you're able to use all these defenses, and the AI is not pushing hard enough, well, it's not going to have a good time. But the fact that it's able to fight in different locations without too much of an issue is still good. It will be curious to see how this does in later campaign, when you start seeing some doom stacks from the enemy army and so on. Will they just scrunch up, or will they split up? It really much depends, though I'm still very, very impressed with the fact that the AI is not being completely stupid. We're a good number of minutes into this battle already, and yeah, no real issues. Any issues that we do see, of course, remember this is still in development. I must admit that I'm surprised that the Noblars are doing decent. Yeah, some of them have taken a lot of damage, but yeah, surprisingly, they've done something. It's not like Skaven slaves, which, you know, you'd expect them to die out much sooner. In fact, one of them did use all their ammunition up. So yeah, maybe they will have some proper use, which is important considering that these are likely to be the only wall climbers throughout the Ogre Kingdom army. Like, yeah, we're not expecting ogres bringing out butt ladders and climbing up. So yeah, I mean, they might not be great, but they're decent enough to be able to last. We did see the staff member use something known as Butcher, which is a battle spell. I believe, and I might be wrong here, that this is tied to the tech tree. It kind of sounds like it from what we've seen in the past. Yeah, this is definitely tied to the tech tree, though I will ask for some clarification from a member of Creative Assembly on Monday, as, well, it's the weekend right now, they're not working, and I'd rather not bother them, because nobody wants to be bothered on their time off. I'm imagining that that fills up with how much damage you do on the battlefield, very similar to that of the Greenskin War, the Dark Elf mechanic, and so on. We don't have 100% clarification on this, but it does seem that there's a few different effects there, so some battle effects would be useful. I wonder if this is just tied to defensive battles, or it could be for everything. I'm imagining that it is for everything, however. Sorry, I'm not trying to speculate a lot, it's just this is the first time we're seeing proper gameplay, especially battle gameplay, and obviously these types of things are very important to know. There's only a few months left until release, and these types of things are really impressive. 2 sections of the Cathayan army have effectively been wiped out at this point, but what we are seeing is on the other 2 sides, Cathay is pushing further and further, and they have regrouped, which I hope is part of the new AI changes where they'll reinforce each other in an effort to push into as one big group. This is still unknown effectively how well the AI is, and I don't think that we'll get to see how well this is until, well, campaign showcases are done and so on, and we see more than just one type of battle in one go. I've got multiple battle videos coming out today, but again, it's not just showing how the AI works completely, it's more focusing around the player's point of view. Which of course means that a varied list like we've seen already, sorry I mean army composition, but then again list is just how you term it in Warhammer Fantasy, has been quite good. We've been able to see a lot of different units in action, not a lot of stuff like directly into the battle. It's mostly from a very high bird's eye point of view, as we're seeing all these different spell effects happening. We're seeing enemies attacking from different locations. We've even seen the Cathayan balloons in action too. It's been quite impressive seeing the armies move around, and the map itself is absolutely gorgeous. This is the most important thing for me, as I'm imagining that there won't be that many different types of ogre camps when it comes to minor settlements. We don't know exactly how many different types of minor settlements per race. I'm assuming it's not going to be a lot, but even then, just this for ogres, if this ends up being just the one for ogres, is perfectly fine, as really it's big enough. It's got a lot of different points, and even though it's just one settlement, it could lead to all these different types of battles, because it is literally that big. I mean, visually, just from this one map, we're going to see a few others when we get into the other videos, it is incredibly visually impressive. It is so important to see stuff like this, as you have to keep in mind that Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 maps well, they haven't really been great unless they're a quest battle. The others have just been very bog standard, and it gets kind of boring, as most of the times it's just been kind of just reskinned over and over again. So hopefully we're going to see a lot more battle map variety, especially to this standard, because I'm literally watching it again, likely for, what, the 12th time, 20th time? I've lost count at this point because I've seen a few different ones, and damn, this just looks so good. Now, the battle itself is almost over, so I'm going to let it play out, and I'll have the game volume open so you can hear it and hear some units and how they sound and so on. Until then, there's going to be a lot of videos dropping today, so it's going to be kind of fun. We're going to have lots of discussions and loads of different battles. Let me know what you think about the Ogres and their minor settlements, however, as it does bear a lot to discuss.
Crushers! Follow the Moor's call! Killing! Scrag the Slaughterer! Lead belchers!
Gotta kill him! Charge! We're better than them!
Thundering forth! Munchar! Thundering forth! Crushers! Eat 'em! The more that walks! Yes, great more! Chop and tear! Dragging the cauldron!
But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Ogre for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.